Okay, I'm a hot mess, but that's okay. I just came in from mowing a small field. I've got one more small enclosure to do and I'm done mowing. Woohoo! So today is Friday and we talked last week about hard times and money and the economy and everything. And I think I'm going to call this segment Hard Times, Let's Talk. I had a couple of questions and I'd like to answer them for you and then we'll get on. The first question I had is last week I'd asked folks if they'd like to ask a question about what we were talking about. And Darlene McFaith asked a question about how do I handle the budget? How do we budget and how do I handle it? Well, the money that comes into the home gets put together and we still have a mortgage. So we have a very small mortgage. Thank you. It's almost paid for. And we don't have a whole lot of bills. We have a mortgage and we have our internet, which is a very small, and we have Dish Network, so we can have a decent TV and programs. And that's it. So we're fortunate that way. And the money that's left over, back in the day, there used to be, there used to be little books that you could buy with envelopes in it, slotted out. Well, they're hard to find now. So I just take envelopes and I write food, propane, oil, gas, miscellaneous. And each envelope gets so much money each week. And it continues to get that even if we don't use it. And just like miscellaneous would be like the Dollar Tree or what I need to buy or whatever. Something miscellaneous. And then I'll take it out of that funds and I'll use that. Now, it goes all the time, no matter what. I have that envelope and it goes. When it gets to a certain amount of money and I think I've got too much money in it, I go put it in the bank because I don't want that much money in the house. So I leave just enough that in case there was emergency, I always have money for food. The only thing sometimes we struggle with, and I have to take Paul to pay Peter, is Ray's medication, because he doesn't have great insurance and his inhalers are very expensive. That's the only thing we struggle with. And we're trying to do better with that because if without his inhalers, he can't breathe. He has COPD really bad and he uses it all the time. I mean, he sometimes lives on it. When it's a hot, muggy day, he really struggles, especially when he's at work. And his work requires him to work in the heat. So, but anyways, that's how we do our budget. And yeah. And if there's anything that I want to pay for or do anything in advance, I just put it in the bank and have it taken out of a debit card. And that works for us. That's how we do it. But as I was brought up with my grandparents, and the way it went was, my grandfather always said that, you work, you pay yourself first. Yes, you pay yourself first. You pay your mortgage, and you make sure your belly's full, okay? And then you pay what you need after your electricity, if you have electricity, and your bills. But you always pay yourself first. And number one was, if you have a mortgage, you pay it. Number one, always pay your mortgage because you got to have a place to live. That was his rule of thumb. I heard that the whole time I was being brought up. You paid for it in cash or you didn't get it at all. And my dad lives to that standard today. He's never had a credit card. He's never had a checkbook. Never. He pays for cash or he doesn't get it, or he'll call me up. Hey, sweet daughter of mine, I need to order something. Can you look it up on the internet? And if I can get it on the internet cheaper than what he can get, I'll get it. And then he pays me. But he pays me in cash. Yes, he's a cash man all the way. And sometimes when I take him grocery shopping, he'll be paying for cash. You know, he's 88 years old. I mean, give him a break. And he's a little hard of hearing. People sometimes behind him get frustrated because he'll say, huh? Excuse me? How much was that? I try to be with him, but sometimes I'm not always with him. And people behind him will say, you need to get a debit card. Get with it. You know, my dad said, I'm not getting a GD credit card. I'm not going to say what he said, but he said the GD word. And so anyways, Darlene, that's that. And then I had one more, and that was from Estelle Zimmerman. And she wanted to know what was the most important staple that I have or we have, and do we sell our produce? Okay, we used to sell produce. We did very well. I took a fall in my health 2 years ago when I had knee surgery, and it's really never come back. So we no longer sell it, and I also had my baker's license at that time. So we sold produce and bakery goods, and I have a beautiful summer kitchen. I did all my baking here, but I did all my selling in my summer kitchen. And yes, we did used to sell our produce. And let me make sure that was all of her questions. Oh, most important staples. The most important staples to me is flour, sugar, baking soda, baking powder, yeast and salt, rice, macaroni, and beans. And dry milk. Don't forget dry milk. Those are the most important staples for me. So thank you both for asking me questions. And if anybody has a question for next week, I'd love to answer them for you. So I'd like to talk about a few things. I was talking to my dad, and we were talking about the Depression. And my dad said that they used to collect all the tin that they could, and they used to flatten cans. And why they did that is because the military needed them to make ships and stuff. And they would gather it all up in great big bins, and they took them someplace, and then it went on to the military. I never knew that before. I thought that was interesting. And another one with the stamps they had, they used to ration them, and they used to use a lot of people use the barter system with them, he said. And they used to get stamps once a month, and you could use the stamps weekly. And once you use it weekly, that's it. You can't go into the store and buy something if you wanted in between that week. And folks plan their meals very, very carefully. And like my dad was saying, most folks back then, they had their own chickens. They had their horses for work in the fields. They had a cow for butter and milk and cream. They had bees for their honey. The women made their own homemade bread. Now, how many make homemade bread today? I do. I like flour tortillas and homemade bread. So that was a little something my dad and I talked about. And like he said too, they had cattle, and they usually had a hog or two. We had a couple of hogs, and their names was Winky and Stinky. Yep. Oh, I got them in the spring, and we took them to slaughter in the fall. And the total meat was 500 pounds. They got fed very well, but guess what? I couldn't eat the meat because Winky and Stinky, I just couldn't do it. So we ended up gifting our meat away. 500 pounds. Well, it was a little under 500 after I couldn't eat it. Ray said, no more Brenda, no more Winky and Stinky. That was very expensive to do. So we just had chickens after that. We had ducks, and we had geese, and we had goats. I loved my Petunia. She was a wonderful, wonderful goat. They were Nubians. They used to go to our mailbox with me. And Petunia would get the newspaper out of I taught her to get the newspaper out of the mailbox, and she'd walk back up the driveway. She was the best goat. Yeah, I loved my Nubians. Let me see what else. And they canned as much as they could. Yes, they canned. They canned everything. They would go out and get their berries. I remember my grandmother going out and picking wild strawberries. As a matter of fact, I used to go out, and I had a tin cup, and I used to go out and pick that tin cup, and I'd walk around the hill, which we called the hill. It was a granite hill, and it was where all the granite workers lived at one point. And I'd knock on the doors, and the Grammies and women would come, and I'd say, would you like to buy some berries? And I got 25 cents for a cup of berries. Those were the days. And there's wild strawberries out now, and the strawberries farms just opened up here. So I will go picking sometime between now and the next 3 weeks. It all depends how things go. But, oh yes, and during the Depression, I was talking to my dad. I said, if you wanted to buy a loaf of bread, how much do you think it would be? He said what he could remember was about 8 cents for a loaf of bread. My dad is sharp as a tack. He can tell you everything right back from his young childhood till today. Yep, it's amazing what that man can remember. But I'd like to sum this up and say, I hope you guys will like this series. Chime in, ask me questions. I'll research it if I don't know. Let's start a great topic here. Let's learn how to save. Give folks tips on what you do. Pick one thing that you do for a tip. I've got a few good tips next week to share with you. Have a great day. Stay safe. And I'll see you tomorrow for, what's tomorrow? For the shout outs and a review. So have a great day. Bye now.